Thank you so much for joining me. This session, you'll need just enough space for your yoga mat, be able to reach beyond the yoga mat, blocks and some blankets in order to find that support and that comfort during the practice. Make sure you've got something to drink and make sure that you take care of you as you move through this session. Thanks again for joining. Enjoy. You'll find that comfortable seat. So let yourself settle in however feels good to you. If it's not comfortable to sit freestyle out in the middle of the room, please take advantage of leaning up against a wall. Like, let yourself build up tolerance in order. That's I had to, and that's you do it, you practice, and it gets a little bit easier. And then also your legs don't have to be really close to you; they can be extended out, and your arms can start down at your sides, or if you want to start with your heart, or if you want to start holding at your navel, and you can also do one at your heart, one at your navel. Let your eyes close if that's comfortable. If not, you just have a slight gaze a few feet in front of you, and let your breath get fuller and deeper as you sit, taking time to unhook from the world and all that's going on, and really just being with yourself and your breath right here, right now. The practicing of this awareness, that really leads to you moving through life with just so much more ease and grace. And the more you practice it, that is not a waste of time. That's always makes sense. So let yourself be with your breath and your body as much as you can during this practice. And if you do find your mind following the storyline in your head, or going to your to-do list, or all of the things you've got going on, that is exactly, so if you become aware that you're doing that, right, you're like, oh, I'm not paying attention, that's exactly when you're doing yoga right. Congratulate yourself and bring yourself back to your breath. You are practicing talking and speaking to yourself with kindness, compassion, and love, especially if you don't typically do that. Use this time to practice that. That is also something that I had to practice a lot. Because negative self-talk is just so a standard. It's the standard out there. And you really have to rewire your brain into getting trapped with those negative thoughts. Paying attention to your breath and your body. Let that breath be full and deep. That's one way that you mitigate those negative thoughts, where you focus on something else. The breath is filling up the lower third of your lungs, and the middle third, then the upper third, and then release fully, upper, middle, lower. So you started those 3-part yoga breaths, letting that breath be as full and deep as feels good. Remember to adjust your legs at any time, especially if your toes or feet are starting to feel tingly. Like, don't let your toes and feet get tingly. It is not a badge of anything. It's in fact, I think that's kind of damaging. To make sure that you are always protecting yourself and taking care of yourself. That breath is that 3-part yoga breath, filling up lower third, middle third, upper third. Let the breath start to be as full as feels good. And if you want the whole body to get involved, as you fill up the lower third, press your navel into that space in front of you. The middle third of your lungs fills up. You feel the ribs move up and apart. The breath goes into the upper third. Feel your heart move up in your chest. And then you exhale, heart and chest relax, ribs move down and together. And then you pull that navel back and up into your body. And then the inhale happens again. You fill up navel, ribs, chest. Exhaling fully, chest, ribs, navel. That navel is what is initiating and ending the cycle of the breath. It's a cycle, so there is no beginning and end. But that navel is that point, that touchstone. So you becoming aware of that place right there in your center. That's where you started. So if you're looking for that home base, that place to settle your mind on in order to feel connected and able to then ground from where you're at. So once you feel that connection, then see if you can feel that support and that grounding in. Breathing full and deep. And then also at that same time, you're also feeling that lift, that airiness into the space around you. And it's coming from that navel, from that center of you. You can bring a gentle tilt of your pelvis, so your back body is coming down, front body coming up. Press your knees away, flex your feet, gently pressing your legs down into the floor in order to feel that support, that anchoring in. And then you can lift yourself. Upper girdle lifts, the heart lifts, the blades gently come down and together. You're not squeezing them together, but they're active and engaged. You might feel this gentle pressure on the tops of your shoulders as you lengthen the space at your neck by pulling the crown of your head and your ears closer to the sky, the top of your ears closer to the sky. And still you're breathing full and deep, navel, ribs, chest. Exhaling fully, chest, ribs, navel. Make sure that you always protect yourself and you support yourself, not letting those legs become aggravating, letting that engagement go at any time that feels good to you. Your hands, if they're not already, can come to your heart. Take some time to bow to yourself and let yourself set a personal intention if you're working on one, or you can expand on the idea of gratitude for yourself and for your yoga practice. Always something good to cultivate, gratitude. And let that breath be full and deep. And hopefully you're not right up against a wall. And if you are, move a little bit away. And then keeping those girdles engaged. Inhale, lift up, gather up all that good juju. Try to keep those shoulders out of your ears. And then exhale, pull right down into your heart center. Second time, inhale. Reach up over your head. Your eyes can be closed or not. Exhale, pull down. Your eyes can be following. Like if you want that extra stretch in your front and back body, but you're in charge. We're going to do this a couple more times. Inhaling. Exhaling. Couple more. And then letting yourself settle in, hands wherever feels good. If you're up high on a big cushion, you might want to just find yourself more on a flatter surface. I still have a cushion, it's just not folded up and I'm not so elevated. And it's just to make sure you're comfortable. I'm going to take a little drink. Make sure you've got something to drink so you stay hydrated. Make sure those legs are not tingly, doing whatever feels good in order to make sure that you wake up and reset. And then you're coming back into somewhat of a cross-legged, but it doesn't have to be super tight, just so it's supported. Your hands could be on your legs or out to the side to support you, and you're going to let that upper body start to move in that circle around, breathing full and deep, letting these circles, so you're getting that nice massage on your glutes, and then these circles are happening at that hip, that right where that hinge happens, so you're getting that nice stretch. And I want you to pause. Like, that feels amazing to me down my side. I'm really pressing that opposite glute down. Reverse your direction, pause wherever else feels good, letting yourself move around in the opposite direction, making these big circles with your upper body as you get that massage. And I've got my feet flexed and I'm pressing my legs down in order to get that support. And then you're going to let the movement go, let yourself unwind, let those legs go side to side, waking up from that seated position. Don't put all your weight on your limbs. Stay lifted in your trunk, inhaling and exhaling. Stay with your breath. And then Let yourself come into that forward fold position, pressing through those heels. We're going to hinge here. This is where you move that padding so you really plug in with the sitting bones. Keep those knees super, super bent, especially since we're still really early in the practice, just to get that stretch down the back of the legs. And start with that body, that upper body coming out of that lower body and letting yourself hinge. We don't have to reach wide if you don't want to. If you do, if it so moves you, because we're just going to come into a nice, easy forward fold. It's I'm not rounding over to those legs. I'm trying to stay lifted. It took me a long time to really get that engagement and that lift. How that front body was always lifting and that back body was always pulling down no matter what position. Let your hands be on those blocks, inhaling and exhaling, staying with your breath. And then lift yourself up a little bit. Right hand comes anywhere on that left leg. Keep your navel square right between your feet, and then lift and rotate that oblique to the left. I love this stretch. It's probably in every single yoga class just because it's so good. You are really stretching and twisting that oblique. Your low back is not twisting. Bring yourself back through center. Really bear down with that lower body. Pull that back body down. Keep those glutes even. Those left hands come anywhere on that right leg, and then rotate and lift the heart. So this is definitely in your upper to middle back. Your gaze can be wherever feels good. Keep pressing through those legs. Unwind yourself, come back. Let those legs now relax. Once again, bend those knees, windshield wipers, so you get that reset position, letting yourself breathe full and deep. And then bring yourself around onto those hands and knees. Take time to make sure that you've got cushion for your knees so you are staying comfortable. I'm not a believer in torturing yourself ever. Life should not be torture. Life should be a blissful adventure, right? that you have plenty of resources in order to fund, and you are mining those from within. And not torturing myself in exercise has been one of the best things that I don't do, because I used to think, no pain, no gain, but that is not so much the case, right? It's more about consistency, right? And then I have a foot cramp. So if you have foot cramps, right, don't get mad at your feet. Just gently wind your ankles, letting that lactic acid move around a little bit. If anybody else has any good, I know I should probably eat more bananas. I'm sure I'm not eating enough bananas. All right, press yourself back into that child. If I didn't say that's what we were doing, I remember I was talking about some other stuff. But I want you to rest back in that child, breathing full and deep. Stay with your breath, your navel, ribs, chest, exhaling fully, chest, ribs, navel. You're still holding yourself in your trunk. Your legs are walked as far apart as feels good. Or maybe they're really close. You're deciding what feels good to you. I'm going to go ahead and just strip off this sweatshirt just so it is out of the way as we start to move. We're going to lift ourselves up into that table position. Take your time to bring those knees now underneath those hips, hands right underneath those shoulders. Do not hyperextend those elbows. There's always a nice soft bend, and engage the arms. The shoulders are pulled out of your ears, and you're going to move in that teeny tiny cat and cow to begin with in order to find that place of support with that lower pelvis. Back body pulled down, front body pulled up, and then keeping those elbows soft, you're going to pull those shoulder blades together, pull them apart so you find that place of support. And then, so it's with the blades pulled apart, and then your cat and cow is in that middle back, breathing full and deep. And you don't have to add any of that engagement that I just suggested, but if you are curious about how to, maintain that awareness of yourself, that engagement of those inner muscles and framework that I'm calling attention to, that helps to get the stretch deeper. At least that's what I found. I'm assuming you're finding the same thing. Try to press evenly into your hands and your knees. See if you can find that awareness of you right between both. And you're keeping that hyper flexible low back and that hyper flexible upper back supported with those girdle engagements that I had you go through. So then that middle back that hardly gets any love and hardly gets any movement is getting the movement. Eventually you're going to be done, and you're going to let the weight come off that upper body and completely rest back into your child. Pull up into that stable table, so you are engaging that lower pelvis, pulling that tail down, lifting those hip flexors, not hyperextending those elbows, doing that anti-shrug move with your shoulders, and make sure you've got room to reach forward and press your leg back. So if you're right up against the wall, right, make that adjustment. You're going to send that left leg back. Keep those hips nice and square. So pay attention to where that left heel and that left foot is. Don't try not to dip down on that left knee, and only if it feels good to you, reach that right arm forward like you're going to shake someone's hand, and make sure you keep that shoulder, those shoulders engaged. Inhale and exhale. You're going to bring that right hand down, and you're going to leave that left leg out, and then you're going to bend the knee and try to bring the knee as high as, so your both arms are pressing down. You're on your right leg. Try to stay up. You're not kneeling on, you're not leaning one way or the other, and you've got that left knee bent. The sole of the left foot is going to the sky, and I just want you to do a few little stamps. It's a teeny tiny move at the glute. You're keeping your leg not externally or internally rotated. It is naturally in that natural state, that resting state. Couple more. Inhale and exhale. Bring that left knee. You're going to swing it towards your left arm. This is a big move. Try not to dip down on that side. Yes, I know you're feeling this right now. I know. Try to keep that left knee as high as that left foot, and then send that left leg back. Feel that nice length, and then just because you can, reach that right arm again and see if it feels a little bit different. And then remember, really take note of what limbs you've got out. I led left leg, right arm. I want you to set those all down. I want you to rest completely back in your child, completely resetting from that posture. This is another place where if you do feel like, even if you're holding yourself in your trunk, you're still going to feel a little bit in your wrist. So make sure that you're always being very gentle with your joints, especially. And another thing too, I didn't bring your awareness to this, but coming onto a blocks, you're still protecting yourself. You don't want the block to be too high. You want your shoulder and your hips to be about same level. When I come into blocks, the shoulders come a little bit higher. So you have to compensate for that. We're going to press that right leg back. Keep those hips nice and square. Just let yourself reach into that opposite spinal balance. And remember, you never have to reach the opposite limb, but letting yourself stay in that awareness of how you're activating those girdles, those sockets, and then reaching from your center. And then bring that left arm down, and then bend that right knee and try to bring that right knee up a little bit higher without dipping down on the right or the left side. Keep pulling your tail down in order to protect that low back. So then the move is in the glute. This is not a big move. You should feel this all in your back pockets. They should be burning. Your back pockets should be burning. It shouldn't be but that's another thing. It shouldn't be torture, but it definitely is intense. And this is where you're deciding how much you want to deal with. And this is where you make those choices for yourself. You're going to bring yourself with that right knee, swinging it now towards that right arm. Try not to dip down on that left side, breathing full and deep. Just let that energy build a little bit here. Not torture, but definitely intense. Letting that intensity build, breathing through that, letting yourself tolerate just a tiny bit more. And then the sweet, sweet relief comes when you send that leg back and then reach that opposite limb. And I feels like I'm flying right there. It feels like I'm so light and so supported at the same time. It's amazing. All right, back into that child, completely reset. Let yourself totally reset. Let the breath be full and deep. Stay in that awareness. Navel, ribs, chest. Exhaling fully, chest, ribs, navel. Use the navel as your home base. Stay in that awareness of that place right behind your navel, right in front of your tail, right there in the middle of you. That is where you started, and that is a great place to then call, right, your beginning, your home base. So then you move from that place, keeping that awareness in that trunk, pulling yourself back up into your table, curling those toes, and hinging up into your downward dog. If you don't want to be in downward dog, you're just in your stable table. Or, of course, resting back in child. Inhale and exhale. Keep those knees really, really bent. Come up onto your toes because, yes, that feels good, but when you settle in, I want you to find those balls. And if you cannot find the balls of your feet, then try to navigate your stance so it's a little bit closer, a little bit further away in order to find that support. Your heels may or may not touch. They are heavy though, and your elbows are not hyperextended. Same with your knees, they're always bent. And you're breathing full and deep. You're going to decide, do you want to walk up from downward dog, bringing those legs underneath you as you lift that lower girdle higher, bring that upper girdle lower, or drop to your knees and step up as many steps as it takes. You're in your forward fold. You're hinging. Use whatever prop feels good here in order to help keep you supported. Play around with your weight up on your balls, back on your heels. Keep those knees bent. You're trying to redistribute that weight and find that place where you can feel supported, and then let the dangle happen, and you're then moving as much or as little as feels good to you. Some people really like to move a lot. Some people like to move not so much. This is you practicing that hinge. I get this wonderful, wonderful oblique stretch as I move to the side, especially in this weighted hinge, this hinge swing. That upper body, it gets that nice weighted feeling. All right, after a few breaths, depending on when you last ate, you can also feel like you're going to vomit. Please don't vomit. Always take care of yourself. Up into your forward fold. Put that weight in your back body. Make sure those toes are not doing any work. You're going to inhale halfway into that flat back. And hands can be right above knees, or they can be resting on blocks, or you can be reaching back behind you. Exhale. Let yourself hinge forward into that forward fold. Make sure that those toes are not doing any work. Inhale halfway into that flat back. Exhale back down for the toes. The next time we come up, if you want to make that great big reverse swan dive, please do. If you feel dizzy or you don't want to do that, then come up in steps where you press up to the awkward chair and then stand into your mountain and then reach. Make sure you keep those girdles engaged. Then reach into as much of a back bend as feels good. So you're still engaging that back body, pulling it down, that front body, lifting it up, finding that length and only reaching back as much as feels good, and then finding yourself in your mountain. Finding those balls, finding those heels right underneath those hips. All of your digits are pointing in the same direction, and you are lifting your toes at the ball. So you're trying to get your whole toe up off the floor. It took me a while and I had to practice this as well. And then bring them down one piggy at a time, either starting with the big piggy or the little piggy. And that's another thing that's a constant practice in order to find that. Those pigs then are just doing that nice, gentle engagement. They are not doing hardly any work. I really want you to try to put the weight back on your heels and your balls. If you take anything away from my yoga sessions, it's how to put the weight in your back body and off your front body. Kneecaps up into thighs, and you're not hyperextending, and then you do that manipulation of that lower girdle. Pull that back body down. This is muscle and framework engagement, not just you squeezing the bejesuses out of your glutes. Lift that front body. Think navel dimples down, solid as a rock, solid base, and then navel dimples, and the dimples on the back of your body. You're lifting, you're light, you're airy, coming into that power pose. Heart lifts into the space in front of you. Your blades gently activate and come down and together, and you feel that slight pressure on the top of your shoulder as you constantly press the top of your head the crown of your head down and the tail up and the tail down, finding that dual feeling, that dichotomy within. And you are connected to your home base. Your hands could be on your body wherever, or they're out to the side. Your eyes can be closed, but stay in that awareness of you. And then don't only just press down and lift up, but think about trying to reach beyond your body to the east and the west, the right and the left. Inhale and exhale. Stay with your breath. And then bring yourself to the long edge of your space. Let those legs extend out. So to start with, you're still activating, pulling those kneecaps up into those thighs and keeping your heels behind your balls and your toes. So your toes, balls, and heels. So they're all lined up, pointing towards the long edge of the space. And so your legs here are not internally rotated or externally rotated. They're in a neutral position. So keep that awareness of how they plug in. You've got that girdle engagement, and they're in that neutral position. We're going to let the legs then walk out. You're always keeping those kneecaps pulled up into your thighs, and you're only walking your legs out as wide as you can feel connected to the balls and heels, your toes not doing any grip. So if you get it really wide, and yeah, you might be super flexible, but if you don't feel in control of you pressing those legs down into the floor, those balls and heels, connecting and activating, then bring your stance in so you still feel supported. And to start with, we haven't externally rotated. Yes, your legs have gone apart, but they're not internally or externally rotating yet. So I've got my blocks to the right. That's where we're going to point. Now we are going to externally rotate now the right leg, and you can keep that knee bent, that kneecap pulled up, and then you're going to internally rotate the left leg. This is all happening at the hips, and this may be where you do bring your stance. I can then bring my stance a little bit further as I bend down my trunk right between those legs. Remember, you want to feel complete control, and then lifting from that lower body, you're lifting that upper body from that lower body, then you're reaching those arms wide. A lot of times you see people reaching over that right leg, and you are reaching over that right leg, but I don't want you to be reaching your whole body. I want you to be lifting up and then letting that arm just be floating over that right leg. Keep internally rotating the back leg. Keep externally rotating the front leg, the right leg. Try to find the connection to those balls. Don't let those big right toes do any work. And you're now going to hinge. So it's not still much a reach, because I want you to keep that lower body nice and solid. You're going to hinge over that right leg. Right arm comes down wherever feels good. Try not to I'm not putting any weight on that limb. You should not be either. Try to stay lifted. That left arm then lifts into that wonderful side angle, breathing full and deep. Keep pulling that back body down. Keep lifting that front body no matter what the position. Keep externally rotating the front leg. Keep internally rotating the back leg. Lift yourself up, breathing full and deep. We're going to reach into that reverse triangle and then lift into that extended triangle. So the right leg straightens, but that kneecap stays nice and protected up in your thigh. And then same thing, hinge into your triangle pose. You are still externally rotating that front leg, internally rotating that back leg. That is what you're practicing here as we move through these mountain poses. So then there are mountain hinge variations with the external and the internal rotation, and all of that. You're going to lift yourself up. You're going to bring your hands to wherever, and you're going to walk your legs in. Be careful. Protect those knees. Burp, burp, burp. I want you to notice how you feel. Right, that practice, that tolerance of you doing that squeeze, right, that you get, it gets a little bit deeper into your muscle memory. It gets a little bit deeper into those nooks and crannies. That oxygenated blood flow gets deeper, and then that just makes you stronger and more resilient, which is exactly what you want. It makes you stronger and more graceful. So keep your awareness on what you're doing with those legs, and remember, you're not torturing yourself. I don't want you to be torturing yourself. I do want you to feel sensation. I would say I would like you to feel uncomfortable too. I don't think being uncomfortable is torture. I know a lot of people would probably disagree with me, but I'm okay with that. I don't think being uncomfortable is necessarily torture, because being uncomfortable is just part of the human experience. I have brought my blocks to the left side of my space. I've got my legs. I start in that mountain in a neutral position. So that means not internally or externally rotated. I am in that neutral position as I start to bring my legs out a little bit further, making sure I always feel connected to the balls and heels. And you can also do a little toe heel move here. Whatever feels good. Kneecaps pulled up into your thighs and you're not hyperextending. Another thing, if you learn from these yoga sessions, is not to hyperextend your joints ever again, because it's just doing so much damage. All right, keeping those girdles engaged. So you're pulling that back body down, lifting that front body. This is where then you are going to externally rotate the left leg, and then you're internally rotating the back right leg now, keeping those kneecaps pulled up to come into that beautiful and wonderful lunge warrior two. And you are holding yourself in that lower trunk, lifting that upper body, finding as that spread, right? So your shoulder blades are active. They're not squeezed together, but they're definitely active. You feel this wonderful stretch on your shoulder blade. Try to keep maintaining that sensation as you hinge over that left leg now. Remember not to put weight on your limb or the prop. You're always staying lifted. Inhale and exhale. And once again, if you find your stance too far apart, just take your time to rearrange. You're still internally rotating the back leg, externally rotating the front leg. So the front leg, the left leg, you're trying to rotate it at the socket. So the knee typically wants to go towards the big toe. You're trying to bring it towards the pinky. All right, lift yourself up. Take your time. Reverse into that wonderful warrior two. And then lengthen as you lift up into, so now that front leg lengthens. You do not hyperextend the knees. Same thing, you're keeping those legs front one external rotated, back one internally rotated as you hinge into your triangle. This is another place where you don't want all your weight on your limbs. You want to be holding yourself in that triangle, that you're holding yourself right there. There's no secret, right? It's in that lower girdle, and it doesn't have to be a six-pack abs in order for that to do the magic that it's supposed to do, because that's what it's supposed to do. But nobody knows how to use their tail or their navel, and that is what I talk about. Hopefully you're finding that helpful. All right, you're lifting yourself up. You're taking your time from that triangle pose, bringing yourself back into standing. So now the legs rotate back into that neutral position. You're back standing, inhaling and exhaling, staying with the breath. The navel is moving into the space in front of you on the inhale, and you're gently pulling it back into your body on the exhale. Staying off your toes, just letting yourself breathe and feel your body. I love how my body feels after all of those stretches. And then taking your time. This is a great place where we're going to practice a little tree. You might want to come next to a wall, but I love to do tree on a block. And this is not cheating. This is you, right, helping you to, because we're practicing, guess what we're doing in tree? We are practicing externally rotating one of the legs. The leg that you're standing on is in neutral rotation. So I brought the block to my right side, and if you do want to use something like a chair or a wall, have that on your left side. I'm going to lead it with the right leg coming up first. Keep that left kneecap pulled up, and I'm going to bring that right leg up, and then I'm going to externally rotate that right leg and just let the right heel be on the edge of that block. I am putting no weight on that block. You can also just hang out here, or you can come right to tree. But I want you to feel yourself engage in that lower girdle, externally rotate that leg that you are bending, keep that neutral position of the leg that you're standing on, kneecap up into your thigh. So you should be feeling both those back pockets come down and engage, both those front pockets lift up and engage, and then your arms are going, so no matter what variation you're doing, your arms are going wherever feels good, breathing. And if you're falling all over the place, do not take yourself seriously. Just stay with your breath. Treat yourself with kindness, compassion, and love. Be happy and excited that you are just doing yoga. All right, take your time. Bring that right leg down. Doesn't matter what it looks like. Right foot down next to left. Let your legs march out. I love to do that a little bit. You can just stand in stillness, or maybe you do a combination of marching, moving, and doing a little stillness. So now that block is to the left side. Same thing. I'm engaged in that. Here's the secret to tree. It's like having that engagement in that lower trunk. You're pressing evenly. And when you bring that leg you're standing on up, it should feel no different in that lower trunk. And you really should, because you're still lifting up off that leg that you are standing on, because all the weight isn't just on that hip, it's on both. So now the left leg is externally rotated. You might have to play around with how far away it is. Make sure that you are keeping that right kneecap of that leg that I'm standing on is pulled up into my thigh and it is not hyperextended. And then whatever you want to do with your arms, even like a lovely, not hyperextending those elbows, pulling those arms down behind to get that nice shoulder stretch. And remember, you can be challenging yourself on in a tree. And you're not taking yourself too seriously. And even if you're doing awesome, or even if you feel like you're failing, all of it is exactly the way it should be. Inhale and exhale, hands at your heart. I almost fell over there. That would have felt fine. Hands to your heart, your navel, one of each, out to the side, whatever feels good. You're going to make your way down. I like to come through a downward dog. After balance and being up, you're in charge. I like to come to the back of my space. I'm hinging into that forward fold, keeping those knees bent, arms reach forward. I've got my girdles engaged. I'm paying attention to my knees and my elbows not hyperextending, and I'm finding the weight on the balls of my feet and my hands. Inhaling and exhaling 2 to 3 breaths in your downward dog, and then make your way into child. And if you don't want to stop in downward dog, then don't. Go right to your child. Completely reset. Inhaling and exhaling. And then take your time, make your way on to your back. This is where I want you to spend a few breaths, just on your back, letting yourself reset. There's not much more to do than relaxation. If you can keep your glutes down, you've lifted your feet, you're rocking, you're circling, inhaling and exhaling. You can also just have your feet down, your arms out to the side, and you can windshield wiper or whatever feels good. And then this is where you move through whatever poses feel good to you. Happy baby, a heart opener, something that makes your body happy. This should definitely not be torture. This should be you settling in, utilizing the oxygenated blood that you've worked up so it can get deep into those nooks and crannies. Make sure you've got your sleeves and your socks, your layers. Now, after all of that movement, it is time to settle in to relaxation. So hopefully you have 5, 7, 8, 10 minutes in order for you to soak up all of the wonderful benefits that relaxation gives you. And you don't try to move on to your next thing. Like, you really just let yourself be. If laying down on your back doesn't seem comfortable, you can also sit in meditation at the best time to really kind of go deeper and to get into yourself is right after you've had that physical movement. So take advantage of it now. Thank you so much for joining me. Namaste. Bye.